So we are having our webinar today, and our webinar, the title is Together Through the Spectrum, which is the caregivers' experiences and insights. This is drawn from the fact that May is the Mental Health Awareness Month, and so many times we want to learn from those who have been in this journey and are in this journey. We learn one from another. The journey of caregiving can be daunting if one is alone, and so it's good to hold each other's hands. So in whichever capacity you've joined us in as a parent, could be an educator, a therapist, whichever capacity, you are most welcome. And let's enjoy this webinar together. So feel free to ask questions, to give input. It is a caregiver, learning and sharing experience webinar. My name is Caroline Debu Adege. Once more, I'll be your moderator for the day. Before we start, I want to talk a little bit about Gifted Gems and what we do. We are an organization that provides education on autism. We also provide psychosocial support, and we also train caregivers with basic skills on how in the management of children with autism. We are really very keen on early identification, early diagnosis, and early intervention. And so all the programs we do are in that, they're directed towards achieving that. And this is one of it, together, with just enlightening each other on how to navigate in the journey when we are raising our gems. Without much further ado, I want to bring in our very able panelists, and I want to thank them for agreeing to do this, and for all of us also sparing the time. So we have three panelists. The first one, I'll just read as it is in the poster. We have Noreen Ogina. Noreen is a caregiver. She's an entrepreneur and creator of YouTube channel Embracing the Spectrum. Noreen will be saying hi to us as we move along. We also have Sheila Masasabi. Sheila is a caregiver. She's a neurodiversity advocate and the founder of Thriving Thoughts. Then we have Mercy Mbogori Kairichi. Mercy is a research scientist. She's an autism mom, founder of the Nairobi Early Intervention Center, FAIR's autism intervention advocate, and a passionate farmer. So thank you, Noreen, Sheila, and Mercy for being with us and accepting and agreeing to share your story. We are looking forward. And therefore, I would like to now bring on board our speakers. That is Noreen, Mercy, and Sheila. Please say something. Let's start with Mercy. Kindly unmute and say something. Say hello to us.
Good evening, everyone. And greetings from me. Can you hear me, Caro?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm very humbled and grateful to be invited here to share my journey and learn from others. Thank you.
But thank you so much, Carol, and good evening, everybody. I think as mentioned, I'm also really honored to be part of this conversation today. As mentioned, my name is Sheila. I'm a caregiver, a mother to 3 awesome kids, and a founder of Thriving Thoughts. And it's actually through raising my kids and also just my own experience that I found the need to just be able to support kids and see them for who they really are. And also just that's what got me into this whole discourse of advocacy around neurodivergence. So thanks for inviting me, and I look forward to having honest and non-judgmental discussions that can enable us actually be able to help each other as caregivers and empower us as caregivers, and also just equip us with the necessary insights that can support us in our journey through this parenting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Sheila. Noreen, are you with us?
Hi, yes, I'm with you.
Yes, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
my name is Noreen Ajiambogina. I'm a mother of two boys. One is 5 years old, who's on the spectrum. The other one is 15. And I'm so glad to be with you all. Thanks for this discussion. I look forward to having candid discussions, and through my experience in raising a KK, my 5-year-old, I look forward to sharing insights on my journey on caregiving and how I've managed to maneuver, and also through my content creation and the rest of the things that I'll be sharing along the way. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you, Noreen, for that. We appreciate. Um, we want to begin with the first finding out the beginning of each of us, the story. What were the earliest signs that you saw or behaviors that made you wonder if your child, may be on the spectrum? And we'll start with you, Noreen, then we'll go to Sheila and then Mercy.
Sorry, then the network went down a bit. Would you come again on that?
What were the earliest signs that made you suspect probably your child could be on the spectrum, or you saw
Oh,
it was not the norm?
okay. As most of you would know, through raising your children, uh, we wonder what would have caused the autism. So I'll just take you back to when Kigoma was born. Uh, he was born just like any other normal child. The milestones were achieved, and at around 6 months, he developed seizures. And we didn't know they were seizures until a lot of tests were done. And he was diagnosed with something called infantile spasms. So it's a rare type of seizure that it has adverse effects on the brain. And it got me to start reading and researching more on what those seizures were and what were the outcomes and what the future held for my child. And one of the shouting outcomes that was there was fully blown epilepsy and autism. So when Kigoma went on growing up, I was actually looking out for those signs. Of course, hoping for the best, but looking out for those signs. So early, at around 1 year, 3 months, I noticed he was hyperactive and very busy. So it was a continuous suspicion until when he was 2, when I continued just observing more and more signs like tiptoeing, hyperactivity, and eventually to the point when he was diagnosed at 2 years, 8 months. So I would say for me, it was my own self diagnosis before the doctors actually confirmed.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. Sheila, what were the earliest signs? And you could tell us also your children and the age.
All right. Thanks, Carol. Well, I have 3 kids, and one is 9 right now. The other 2 are twins, and they are 4. All of them on the spectrum. And so for each one of my kids, the signs were a little different, with about 3 or so that were common for all of them. So when they say it's a spectrum, it's actually a spectrum, believe it, yeah, because it was really, they presented differently, all of them. So what was common? Number 1, there was the delayed speech and communication, which they certainly were behind the recommended timelines, and also the number of words that are expected for their age. And so this was especially difficult as a first-time mom, because as we may have all experienced, you get asked all the time, mbona haongei bado? And for those who are Swahili non-speakers, it simply means that you're being asked, why are they not talking yet? And so as much as autism was not entirely new to me, I had not walked that autism journey. So this was not something I was probably super, it was one of those that you're waiting for them to also just, get onto it. And so the second common sign also for all of them was the stimming. So my older one was a hammer or is a hammer. So he does something like for some time. And, at that time, for us, something that we also imitated and we also just found it interesting. But of course, with time it looked off. Yeah, because it was, it was not something that also, other kids are doing anyway. My daughter is a hand flapper. So she flaps a lot. So that's something that was, made you think, Appa, there's probably something else. My other son as well, for him, he's a rocker. So he used to rock back and forth just to self-regulate. And so that is, so they all had stimming. And also they would spin a lot, and for autism, we are told in terms of, repetitive behavior. So of course, kids can spin, yeah, but then theirs was a bit extra and a lot. And they didn't fall, they don't necessarily fall down. You wait for them to fall, but they're just spinning and then they continue with their life like nothing has happened. And so that's one thing that we both found quite interesting. And lastly, they also had this interesting form of stimming where they would stare into a light, yeah, for so long, yeah, a bulb and something like that. All of them actually, they had that common sign that they would stare into a bulb for some time and really just be there and fixated for quite some time before they would now, snap out of it. And so, of course, then there's what was very unique to each one of them. And so what was unique was that for the 9-year-old, he tiptoed quite a lot. And I personally had not noticed it. So one day that's the one who said, okay, why is he tiptoeing? And that's when we now started thinking, okay, this one, we probably need to check it and see what this is all about. It's also very inconsolable. You see the way kids cry and you're addressing it through, diaper change, bottle hanger, such things. For him, it was what nowadays we say, analia mpaka imtoke, So he'd cry until when he'd settle. That's when he'd settle is when he'd settle. Yeah. And so later on, of course, we came to learn that he was having a sensory overload and it was a meltdown. But then we just knew by then when he begins crying, until when that will be over. Something else about him was that, of course, he used to cover his ears at a very early age. Especially when we were out, he would put his 2 fingers in his ears and really cover them, especially when he was having an overload. He also preferred solo play, even when with other people, and had also an issue around chewing quite a lot. With the twins, of course, I picked this much earlier, having gone through a similar experience, and so my antenna was a bit up on matters autism. And so for the girl, what was very unique for her was the regression. Yeah, because for her, as they say, girls are a bit chap. So she was getting language kidogo here and there. She had words and could respond to her name quite early. And then all this just disappeared. So we came to learn, of course, later on from the PID that this was a huge concern, because then it meant that they were regressing. Something else that was unique about her was that, imagine being a twin and your trigger is your twin brother's cry. So that was something that was so unmanageable, because then that pitch was not working for her. And so it was so difficult, because then anytime she'd cry, we'd have to put her away. Once we figured it out, of course, we'd have to move her away from the twin brother so that does not distress her for a very long time. Something else for her that was very unique was she had extreme social anxiety. So you could not look at her, you couldn't. A new person apart from the family and then no one else, it would turn into a full-blown meltdown if you just said hi to her or looked at her. And so that was something else again. For the other twin, what was unique for him was the fact that he would really line up his stuff. He would line up his things in a certain way that was, of course, unique. And he'd prefer, of course, also to play on his own, but had a very certain interest with small cars. This is also common with the brother earlier on, but for him, it was really succession, the way he would line them up, in the sense that, of course, it was unique for him. Something else that was also unique for him was the fact there's something that they call eye tracking or something like that. He would peer through the corner of his eyes and would go around looking from the corner. That was unique to him because the rest did not do that. And so that one I picked very early. And I used to tell the PID even for the first, before 6 months, I'm like, okay, why does he do that? And the PID is like, it's too early, let's just give them time. But that's one of the very earliest, and that he would actually peer through the corners of his eyes and go around just looking at things around. Then of course later on you come and realize that was some form of regulation and some form of steaming as well, but that was also unique for him. So those were some of the signs that we picked quite early prior to diagnosis for the kids. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sheila. That is really quite elaborate. And even for any parent who's here and is with us, just listening in, these are some of the signs as we're speaking that you to look out for and even for a new parent. Mercy, coming to you, please tell us what signs did you see?
Thank you very much, Carol. Mine was really quite interesting because my sons they are triplets. They were born very preemie. They were born at 28 weeks, so they were in the ICU for a very long time. And the first thing that, and then my triplets are my last borns. I'm a mother of 7. I have 4 girls, neurotypical, and then the boys. So the thing that did it for me very early was the fact that my sons were really not engaged with the world around them. You know, I was their mother. They didn't seem to really understand who I am. They didn't seem to connect. You try to like even play, they just want to play on their own. So I did not, until diagnosis, for me, I had never heard of autism. So I just knew something is wrong with my sons. But I did not even start to have a clue of what it could be. And then when I went to the pediatricians, I told them, you know, something is wrong with my sons. They don't seem to know their names. They don't seem to know me as their mom. Even when I leave and say goodbye, they're not even aware. There was no joint attention with their environment at all. But the doctors, and I went to several doctors, several hospitals, but they all said maybe it's delayed milestones. I should wait. It's because they are boys. It's because they are triplets. It's because they were born preemie. So all those things kind of shadowed the diagnosis. But for me, it was quite clear. I could tell something is wrong, but I didn't know what it was. Ricky used to do a lot of putting on and off the lights. He used to open and close the door. He used to like if there is the toy cars, he would just keep pushing the wheel, but they didn't really play with the toys the right way. You know, they would just bang them, destroy them. And the most stressful part was they could not sit down even for 10 seconds. Imagine having 3 kids, they're just running on the corridor. The only time they stilled is when there was an advert. You know, adverts are short and entertaining. So even if they were very far, when the adverts came, they would run very quickly to the sitting room and look and then scamper away again. And even when later we were told to do an hearing test, for sure I knew that my sons can hear because it was very clear how they would come running for an advert. Then, of course, they were also aggressive. You know, they would fight among themselves. They would scratch us. They would bite us. They would spit on us. And then at 2 years now, when one of my sons was admitted, is when actually the pediatrician said, "Can you go and see a certain neurologist?" And that's how the diagnosis came. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mercy. In fact, I think we just carry on from there, how the diagnosis came. Please walk us through the diagnosis journey. How was it for you, you know, getting there and then being told it's autism? You know, how was it for you?
Yeah, so for me, okay, so we called the neurologist and we went there. We didn't even know what to expect for sure. We didn't know whether we were going for a diagnosis or anything. So when we went to this neurologist, he said we all get in. Usually, because of the hyperactivity, when you go to the hospital, I would insist we do one child after another. But this neurologist insisted we just get in, all of us. And it was very chaotic because my sons were extremely hyper. So we sit in, and we always went, each child went with somebody to just be with them. So it was me, my husband, and one of my daughters. So 6 people in the doctor's room. And immediately, they start seeing things, stethoscopes, things here, and they were, running everywhere and grabbing everything. Some are under the doctor's seat. And in less than 5 minutes, Carol, I kid you not, the doctor was like, "Oh, these children are autistic. They have autism." And he would be like, "Look at this one. This one he's in his own world. Look at this one, is under the seat and under the table. This one is a little bit better," now referring to Ricky. And I sat there like a zombie, and for me, it felt like I was being told my sons were dead. The diagnosis came as though I was told your sons are normal. It was very chilling. It was very traumatic. It was too emotional. I left the doctor's office, and went to the toilet and threw up. And all the way home, I was just crying. So that's how the diagnosis came for us. There wasn't like, how I would have expected diagnosis would be testing or something like that. In less than 5 minutes, we had the diagnosis. It was very traumatic for me.
We hear you. And I know many parents resonate with how the diagnosis, being told what is happening to your child, how that feels. Thank you. Thank you for that. Sheila, how was it for you?
Well, for me, it was almost similar in the sense that it was quite stressful. But let me just say that the journey began by their primary ped referring them to now a developmental pediatrician, because now, of course, they had their regular ped, but when he noticed now we are getting to 2 and we are behind on this and this and that, he was like, you know what, I'm going to refer you to the developmental specialist, and then and also neuro. After that, then we can have a discussion thereafter. So personally, especially with the first, during this whole period before we now went to see the development, because of course there was a period there in between. I think I did too much research. I probably could have drowned in information. I read, and it was one of those that was really, proper going down the rabbit hole. So, late nights, and also just overthinking and overworrying. So it was not. So it was not generally a long one, because it was just a series of tests, the hearing and everything. And then, of course, after that, we went for the evaluation, and then we later now got the diagnosis after the evaluation. So it was very tough, of course, but I still feel like it gave us some form of direction. But I remember with the first one, especially since I had gone for the final evaluation, just me and my son after work. Because you're given a diagnosis and then you just let to go. It's like your son is autistic and then period, so you're going to start this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, bye. And so we live, but you see, this is someone, as in my mind, was in a very terrible place, to be very honest, at that point. And so I always say, I think God was just with us that day, because I could have easily have caused an accident. My son was at the back on the car seat, him is just, bubbling and everything, oblivious of how the world had shattered for the mom, because it was raining and I cried all the way, literally all the way home. I wasn't even seeing panguza tu machozi and moving, all the way home. And so it was very difficult, because in hindsight, I feel it could have been handled better, deliver that news to a parent, but then give them time, or also just kind of try and see what kind of support they have before telling them bye, yeah, or something close to that. I think we need to link it quite well. For the little ones, of course, much as it was expected, because you had picked things here and there. It was equally heartbreaking because then you had seen the kind of struggles that we had gone with their older brother, and we knew it was almost a similar path for them. And so, of course, it was personally very heartbreaking for me. And I remember specifically the PID saying, these were his words actually, that you see, you've been through this journey before, so this one should be, it's gonna be easy. You know who to go to, you know who. And I remember looking at them and like, are you for real, right? Are you for real? Because, there's nothing easy about this. I've walked this, and just because I have another one doesn't mean that it's gonna be easy. Yeah, I'm still actually heartbroken, and I feel that this is gonna be quite heavy. But it's good to actually be in the know. But it does not change things that because you've gone through it, then it makes it different, because they come in very unique ways, and it's actually quite difficult in every sense of the word. And so that was the diagnosis experience for all of us. Thankfully, it was not a very long one. It didn't take that long, actually, from when there were suspicions to when we were sent for the tests, and then from when we finally got the diagnosis. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. We hear you. We hear you. Noreen, how was your journey?
Yeah, thank you, Carol. So just like I'd shared before, that I always suspected, but as much as you suspect as a parent, there's that part that there's wishful thinking that probably your suspicions are wrong. So that was me. So when I kept pushing, you see, now we were going for monthly visits to the that neurologist because of his seizures. So I kept asking, can we do an assessment for this child? Can we do a diagnosis? I need a diagnosis. I'm suspecting, but then she kept on reassuring me that it could be because of the seizure meds, that is why he was hyper. So probably if he's off the seizure meds, then we will be able to diagnose. But I'm asking, how long will he be on the seizure meds before we think of diagnosing? And she was like, I'll let you know. So I kept pushing until I think she just gave up and gave me a number, yeah, and booked an appointment for me that I need to go and see a a developmental specialist. Sorry, I don't know how to refer them, but yes, to get assessed. So they did something called the ADOS test, where it was like an hour's test where they covered everything and they kept asking specific questions. Also, there was play involved and seeing how the child behaves and all that. And that is when he was diagnosed for level 2 autism and level 2 on the spectrum. So it was devastating equally. As much as I suspected, I really cried on my way home. Thankfully, I think I suspected that is how it's gonna be. So that day I didn't drive to the hospital. I took an Uber. So on my way back, I really, really cried because I kept asking God, like, there was this seizures to deal with. Why did you have to add autism on top of the seizures that we are working on stopping? So I would say it was equally devastating, just like the rest of the speakers. And with the journey of acceptance, I know we're going to get there. For me, it was easier because I think I had started grieving before I actually knew the answer. And going through it was a little bit easier compared to the stories I've equally heard from other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Noreen. We hear you. We hear you. You've alluded to acceptance, the journey to acceptance. What was that like for you and your family? What was really from denial to acceptance? What was it for you?
For me, I must admit and thank God that I had a supportive family, because now I knew even with the seizures, this was a special child. So my family was supportive right from the start. They were all asking and they were all aware of my suspicions, so that when it came, when the news came, they were like, they embraced me. And they're the chap kind of people. Like, now we know what next. What kind of support do you need? So I think it didn't give me room to go through denial, because people are there ready to offer solutions on how we are going to move forward. And what I didn't share is that the fact that I suspected, I already enrolled KK to a special school before getting the diagnosis. So for me, it was more like a continuation into it. And with family support, it was easy for me to go through that process.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Sheila, what was that from, the diagnosis, processing through the information to accepting? What was that journey like for you?
For me, I must say that, of course, a number of emotions to begin with. Yeah, a number of emotions to begin with. So the first one certainly was grief. And I must say it felt like I had lost somebody when now we were getting the diagnosis for the first ones. So much as they were there with me, I'm seeing my child, here he is. But it was some unexplainable pain. I can't really explain it, which as much I was almost prepared when it came to the twins, it really hit deep and different. So I remember, like I said, the conversation we had with the PID, but then again, of course, it hit different for the little ones. So secondly, of course, something that really also happened post-diagnosis was really some fear, especially most of us link it to some sort of uncertainty of the future. So you worry whether the society will accept your child. You worry whether they're gonna struggle through, their social life, just school, friendships, just their mere existence. You're just wondering, okay, how is it gonna be for them? And also, of course, the other one was some bit of guilt, because you see, as I had explained earlier, some things we even joked about, particularly the humming and everything, the way he'd cried, we used to give him time, like, hata tukifanya nini, he might not really respond right now. Yeah, he'll settle when he settles. So, those obvious signs, of course, wondering whether I had missed something and why I had missed it. And also just the fact that, of course, you feel like probably you shouldn't have misunderstood them the way you had, because then you're their mom. So there was like an element of guilt, to be very honest, I must say. But also, of course, with the guilt, even with the guilt, there was it came with it some sense of a protectiveness, I must say, because from there then I became his voice. Like, you just won't say he's having a meltdown and he's badly behaved. I would check you and tell you, no, it's for this and this reason. So I became sort of a protective after that, of course. And also, of course, even with the guilt, there was also some sense of relief that, it kind of makes sense now why he's a bit different, why he's a bit delayed, why things are different for him. But there was some element of relief, of course, regardless of how heavy the situation was. So in terms of acceptance, I think, for sure, I allowed myself to grieve. So unknowingly, and also knowingly, I would cry when I needed to cry. I don't cry in front of people, but I would, when it came, I would cry in my own space. So I allowed myself to go through all those motions, even as I was trying to put in place plans. And of course, just a lot of research and learning from other caregivers and getting to hear their stories.
So, Carol, for me, it was, I cannot talk about being in denial. I did not go through any denial, because from around 7 months, I knew something is wrong with my boys, but I didn't know what it was. Then I am given what it is. And this is something I hadn't even heard of before. I had problems even pronouncing the word autism. I did not know anybody with autism. So then, of course, that was so shocking. I mean, the diagnosis brought a lot of shock, especially because the diagnosis came with a poor prognosis. I would say that it's the poor prognosis that actually did it for me. You expect that when you go to a doctor, you're given a diagnosis and a treatment path, right? This is what you're gonna do, and things are gonna get better. But now for us, there was nothing. We were just given a sheet of diet. So much, don't eat this little, take camel milk. I remember how my sister in Nanyuki, she had to send every Sunday morning 20 liters of camel milk. Very early, the first matatu from Nanyuki, then we would get it, repack it so that the children have it over over the whole week. So the only thing we were told is the diet. So we spent a lot of money going to Healthy U to buy gluten-free. So we were told gluten-free, sugar-free, and casein-free. So for me, from the day I left the doctor's office, I went downhill very fast until I went into a clinical depression. Was admitted at Jiromo Medical Lane because I wanted to kill myself. It was, I mean, my life just shut down and I could not see how to go forward. I did not have a way to go forward, despite the family. My husband was very supportive. My siblings, because my husband had called them, come and see what's wrong with your sister. She's saying our sons have a problem. When they came, they said they cannot see anything. And yet for me, I could feel, but I couldn't touch. I couldn't tell what it is. But deep down, I knew there was something. So, Cara, for me, for the next 3.5 years, it was horrors. It was bad. So I also now became sick. So I cannot take care of my sons. I have to be taken care of. And then there was also the issue of school, which brought even more trauma. So it was bad. It was bad because we didn't have any tools. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know anyone to guide us. This is what you need to do. So it was bad. Yeah.
So sorry about that. Thank you for sharing. Maybe just in a sentence or so to a caregiver who is in that space right now. They've just received a diagnosis. What would you tell them in this journey? They're struggling about even accepting the diagnosis. Starting maybe with you, Mercy.
Yes. So I think what I would tell any parent who has just received a diagnosis, or you've not yet even received a diagnosis yet, look for the community support. What am I talking about? Community support. These days, there are a lot of groups, and if you Google Facebook, you will find a lot of parent groups. Please join one. If you haven't had any diagnosis yet, still, Google is very good. I have to say Google, I call it Dr. Google because it is where I started having, positive vibes. So I would say go to Google, search, and then Google will lead you to a lot of groups. Search for groups. You can search the condition you feel, the symptoms you find your child with. You don't have a diagnosis, but you have some symptoms. You can Google them, and it will give you some beginning, somewhere to begin. And the reason I'm talking about group is because the day someone put me in a group of parents of children with autism called the Differently Talented Society of Kenya. I mean, I think that's when I started to breathe. I mean, just seeing so many parents going through this, there is something about journeying the same journey. So I would tell parents to ask for support through family and friends, close family and friends. That's very important. I think that for me, the other thing that helped me is because I'm very talkative. I'm an extrovert. So I talk. Carol, in 5 minutes, you'll know who is Mercy. I am like a book. So I encourage you, don't stay in your own cocoon. Please talk to even a few people who you are with in the office, the people you trust. And having that close community is very important even before you find what you need to do. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Sheila, what would you say to a caregiver who's just received a diagnosis and is in that space of trying to accept what is going on?
Well, of course, you see, having lived the journey, sometimes it might seem that, we might be speaking from a point of privilege because we've already lived it a bit. Yeah, but for any parent or any caregiver who has just begun this path, yeah, I know it's easier said than done, but just take it one day at a time. Yeah. I was told the same, but it didn't make sense. And I also know for you right now, as a new parent with a new diagnosis, it might not make sense. Yeah. But take it a day at a time. Give yourself some grace. Yeah. Allow yourself to grieve if that's what you're feeling right now. Yeah. If you're feeling like it is unfair, feel it. Yeah. If you're feeling like, why God, why us, feel it. Yeah. If you're questioning, personally, I really questioned my faith. I was really shaken, particularly when the twins were also diagnosed. Yeah. My faith was really shaken. Yeah. So if that is what is happening, you allow yourself to feel it. But once that is done, try and pick yourself up and be the parent that your child actually needs, because at the end of the day they still need you. We break down, we go through everything, we get ourselves help, we get ourselves treated, but it's important that after you go through all this, that you pick yourself up, and also just that you're able to actually be there for your child. And so definitely take it a day at a time. We say it sounds easier, but it doesn't get easier. It just gets better. You get more equipped, you get more empowered, and you know how to manage. Each stage has its different issues, but you just learn. You just get to you get better at autism parenting. In short, yeah, I know that it gets easier, but you get better as a caregiver. So believe us when we say that. Take a day at a time, and it's actually gonna, it gets easier. Not in the sense that it's easy, but you get better at parenting it.
Okay, thank you for that.
Another one is actually similar to what probably Marcia said, but when all right.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying it's maybe tying to what Marcia is saying. When it gets hard, and it will actually, it gets hard, reach out. Yeah, the journey is not meant to be done by yourself or in silence or feeling ashamed. You're not alone. So even if you may feel overwhelmed right now, confused, terrified, there's a whole community of caregivers. Yeah, and for many of us who've already walked, we are willing to handhold, and we continue to handhold. And we know how difficult it can be when nobody is giving you guidance. So when it's hard, please reach out. If you don't feel like being in a big space to ask, and it happens, though it's very helpful, reach out to us, reach out to anyone that you've seen has walked the journey, and let them be able to support you. So, because much as it is a unique and personal journey, we can all lean on each other. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. Noreen, what would you weigh in on this particular question of acceptance to a new parent?
Yeah, thank you, Caro. To add on to what Mercy and Sheila have said, what I'd like to tell newly diagnosed children to the caregivers, breathe, just breathe. And there's that need to find all interventions at a go. And from experience, it can be so overwhelming because, yes, there's the support groups, which I would encourage you to join, but you need to assess each and every support group each at a time, and don't try everything at a time. Do one intervention at a time and give it time to work, because it leads to a lot of frustrations when, like from experience, I went for a hearing test without even knowing why I need to do a hearing test, just because a hearing test is needed. And then you go to another group, you hear that you need to do supplements, so you're there assessing, like, should I go for fish oil, should I go for omega what, should I go for all kinds of intervention. I need to do gluten free, I need to do uh, uh, is it lactose, whatever, and you forget that each and every child on the spectrum is different, so that this person's intervention would not necessarily work with yours. So it's good to be patient with all these interventions. You'll want to get an occupational therapist because somebody is doing occupational therapy, and then you're not patient enough. You even do not know what you need to be looking out for occupational therapy. So this brings also the aspect of research. When you take in an intervention, you need to understand why you want to do it and what are the expected outcomes. So breathe and take one step at a time. And like we all say, it eventually gets easier. When you join these support groups, you tend to find a community that you can resonate with, a community that you can run to ask for quick solutions or when you're stuck. And I want to assure you that once you're keen on that, you form very deep friendships and a healthy community that at times with people that I have dealt with, you're going through stuff and you post there and you end up having a good laugh, because also there's a way we use humor to cope with our little challenges. So find us the support from this wonderful community that is out there. I tell you that indeed it has done wonders for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noreen. And you have spoken about interventions, and that's the next step we are coming into. And I just want to just ask you now, after the diagnosis, after now, you now know what's happening, you have accepted. How, what interventions did you start, and why?
Now, from the initial diagnosis of the seizures, we already started with occupational therapies, occupational therapy to be able to hit the milestones. So after the diagnosis, we continued with the occupational therapy, and I feel like that is one of the best interventions that I did for my son. And one thing with occupational therapy is that it is expensive. And with the expense, you tend to run out of funds. So you need to be very strategic when you're doing the occupational therapy and know like where to go to, knowing that you could be having funds today, but these funds get depleted. So in my experience, of course, those funds got depleted and I had to look to stop at some point. So when I went back to the neurologist and she asked like, why did you stop? Find a way to continue. So I found myself going to Bagadi. Actually, I went there for a fact-finding mission without my child, so that I was just following the arrows. That is the occupational therapy department. And I was just hoovering and loitering around there. And you see the way the people at the government hospital, they can be so direct with you and like, what do you need? And I'm like, I was just looking at the occupational therapy department. Umekuja kuangalilia nani mtoto ako wapi? I was like, ako nyumbani, kuja naye kesho. So they just rushed me through, and the following day I found myself with my child there, and they had amazing services, and that is where we went on. And more on the intervention, I ended up going to a special school. I chose a special school because when I was scouting for a school around the area I could not see a good fit for my child. With his ADHD aspect, the fact that he could not concentrate, I realized that a normal school would not be the best fit. I'm not saying that that it would not be the best fit for other children, but that is what initially I felt for my child. So I started looking for a school for KK, and eventually from Facebook, I saw somebody who posted a name of the owner of a school close to me, because proximity was a factor for me. So we ended up going there, and we found that it was a wonderful space. It was a special school that was it had everything that a parent with a child with autism would ever dream of. So one of the things was they had a good program. Sorry, there's somebody in the background.
Yeah, sorry. Just...
Yeah, they had various interventions going on. So when we entered that school, the environment was very warm. The compound was well mowed, and even the gravel was very, very, very fine. So that when KK just entered, I could just feel the ambience was quite welcoming. The teacher was very direct, and they shared the program. All the therapies were in the program, in their plan, in the education plan. So it's more like an early intervention center where they had music therapy, they had physical therapy, they had hydrotherapy, they had all forms. They would paint, they would do activities of daily living, and I felt like I was home. So I would consider that also an intervention for him. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. Sheila, what interventions have you used and why?
Well, when we began this journey close to 8 years ago, it was a bit different from now. And so because we had, like I mentioned, there was a gap between when their primary ped sent us to the developmental pediatrician. So as he was sending us, he was like, you know what, even as you wait for that appointment, put the boy in school. He's not yet 3. He was like, find a good school, put him in school, or any place where he can socialize. So decide whether it's going to be a daycare or a school, but just put him in a space where he can have some social exposure. And so, and he suggested things. One, put him in school, and two, if you're able to find a speech therapist, then the better for you. So of course, went around looking for a good fit in terms of schooling. Found a space, explained our issues. This was prior to the diagnosis, but explained our issues. We were not able to chew. We were delayed in speaking. We had this and that, and so went around checking a number of places. But there's only one that seemed like they got it. They understood, because for anything you're telling them, they tell you, we'll do this for, and this time you've not even registered to be part of the school. For anything you're telling them that we have this gap, they're like, we'll try and do this. We have this gap, we'll try and do this. And so I felt at home with just that, a sense of understanding and actually knowing. And because I think they had also handled other special needs children, it's a Montessori space, not necessarily a special school, but then they were able to take him. So that was one of the things that we did. That was for the older one. Secondly, of course, was in the school, they also had therapists. And so he was quickly onboarded to the speech therapist at that time. And in no time, he was doing quite well. So I think we were doing that based, of course, on recommendation, and also just, as an intervention that I was aware, had decided that, was good for him. For the twins, because it was quite recent, there's a standard way of recommendations nowadays, particularly with the development pediatricians. So the referrals were 1 ABA, 2 OT, and then 3 speech therapy, in that order. And so having to, and doing research here and there and looking at the costs for and also of course school, but looking at the costs for ABA and for 2 kids, it quickly became apparent that that might not be something that we might take up immediately because of the cost and having twins who needed both to go into it. So we went to number 2, which is OT, and also put them in school as well. So for school, I didn't look again at this second time round, of course, because then where the older one had worked perfectly, the Montessori school, so they got into that as well for of socialization and everything. But now when we came this time around, because my boy had already transitioned from that school, we found that they had a special needs unit. And so they had a team already in space, much as we had begun OT and everything at home. They already had this existing. And so they had both school, they had OT in school, they had speech therapy in school, as well as now the home interventions that we had. So those are some of the key things that we did. And of course, play therapy, hydro as well, which is part of OT. And what else? I think those are some of the key ones that we did, at that time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Sheila. Mercy, what interventions did you engage in for the children?
Yeah, thank you very much, Carol. So let me just step a little bit back and talk about how I arrived at a good space. We started with taking the children to a normal school, which is within the estate, for 1.5 terms. And Carol, I can tell you, I broke down. This is a school which is private. It has a moderate. I think for a private school, having a class of that 5, that's quite good. It's a highly performing top kids in class 8. And I say that my sons should be put in different streams so that it can be easier for the teacher. But Carol, every time I went to the school, it was devastating. You'd go to a class and find Eric is just in front there, somersaulting on his own. Others are reading. I'm talking of baby class at 3 years. They start learning numbers and the alphabet using the songs. My sons are nonverbal. They cannot talk. They cannot sit. They have ADHD. I remember I talked about them not participating with the environment. So of course they could not even listen, leave alone understanding the instructions. So they just used to be there. And when the reports came, there was not even, like at least at age 2, the play school, they would even have them do painting, they take their hands and there was something. But here now, this is serious schoolwork. And all their work came still learning. So I was traumatized and I started now searching again now for the right place for my sons. And someone suggested I do a Montessori, and we got a school for Montessori. And Caro, that's where our journey began to normalize. Because in this school, although it was not a special needs school, Montessori is quite it's quite good for special needs children. But what happened is that this school had a group of special needs consultants. So these ones now are supporting the school for those few children they had who had special needs. And so we were told that we have to have a consultant come to the school, do assessment for a week. And we said, fine. So we waited. After 1 week, we were called for a meeting. And I will never forget this meeting. Because, Carol, this is the meeting when I started shedding the weight. My mind started relaxing because you can imagine for about 3.5 years, we are still struggling. Let me say I took the front seat as the mother to look for solutions. So imagine this is not my domain. I'm not a specialist here. And you can imagine the sheer stress of trying to look for a solution, and that's not your area. So then you meet people who are talking about why does Lenny run? And then you hear about ADHD. You hear about their proprioception. That is why they are jumping. Vestibular issues, sensory issues. Then you're like, wow. So as they were talking, they were describing exactly how my sons were. And these are things I didn't know that they are medical. I didn't know what they are, right? And here they are now describing what is driving it. There is an internal thing driving it. It's not just behavior. It's like there you feel like scratching and you scratch, right? So it was long. It was nice. They gave us the gaps. These are the gaps for each child. The 3 of them were all different. We were given the gaps for each, and it didn't stop there, Carol. The beauty is that after giving us the gaps, then there was the solution. So for each gap, this is what you do. And what you do was divided into little steps, little steps how to achieve. Let's say it is toileting. Let's say it is eating. Let's say it is dealing with the jumping, concentration. So, Carol, from there, we had the right team. I think, let me just say that meeting the right team, it removed the burden from us as a family, and especially for me. And now the ball was in their dock. We just did what we were told. And in 3 months, Carol, wow, we could see results. So then it got a point when the OT said, I wish the school had, I wish we could do brain gym every morning. I'm like, hey, why don't we do brain gym every morning? I don't even know what's brain gym. Then they're like, okay, we can't do brain gym because we need a therapy place where, and the school doesn't have a therapy place. Then I'm like, okay, so what do we need? So I was taken to a school, which a special needs school, which has both therapies and academics in one space. So I stayed there for about 2 hours. I was taken through exactly what is brain gym, what is OT, what is, so many things within the therapy section. And then we enrolled the boys there for after school for like 6 months. So we would get out of the Montessori. We take the children to this other school for 2 hours every other day. Then the results were really amazing. Then we enrolled them for 5 hours every Saturday. And by the time we did that for 2 semesters, I was like, I got my family and friends, and I'm like, why don't we do a school like this? No, first it was to do a fundraising to afford this school, and definitely we could not afford it. So what we did is that we started a school like that. So I am a founder of an autism school that's where my sons go. And so we have combined both therapies and the academics, and that has taken care of um, multidisciplinary neurorehabilitation therapies. It's our panel of them. Then we have combined it with the school, with special education. But the beauty about this school is that the therapists are part of the curriculum. So you cannot come to school and say, I only want 2 hours of OT. No, 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 no. Our therapists are part of the curriculum. It's only a few like music that are not, a few music. We have a few that are not part of the curriculum, but if a parent wants, you can have them. And this has really, really been, I think, what has done it, because my sons were quite severe, and having this setup has been very good. One of my sons was able to transition and go to a normal school, but still with a shadow teacher. Another intervention that has really helped my sons is a treatment called stem cell treatment. We had to travel to India. Maybe a number of you might have contributed for my mega fundraising, where we went with my sons to Neurogen Hospital in Mumbai, and we stayed there for 1.5 years. And my son's brain really, really healed to such an extent that now you can see them doing some things, doing some things where they have not been trained, but now they are learning the way their brains should have learned in the first place. Looking, engaging with the environment, seeing what is happening, and doing it, and even using common sense. I've seen Lenny using some common sense and wondering who taught him. So we are in this space that I'm no longer scared of autism. My sons are thriving, and it has taken a whole 360 kind of multidisciplinary approach. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Mercy. I see one of us asking, what's the name of your school?
It's called the Nairobi Early Intervention Center, in short, NAIC, and it's in Lavington.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So in terms of the interventions that I think cutting across, we are talking about occupational therapy, speech therapy, applied behavior analysis therapy, play therapy, stem cell also is an intervention that Mercy has talked about. So for a parent who is out here and you're starting the journey, as one of us said, breathe and strategize, but those are the therapies, some of the therapies, even music therapy that is out here that can help your child. And before I go to the next, when you're still talking about therapists, one key thing that probably we would tell a caregiver, how do you differentiate between a fake therapist and I don't say real, the name is disappearing. Authentic, yes, and an authentic therapist. How would you advise a caregiver? How do you differentiate from your experience? Starting with you, Sheila.
Of course, for me, when we began off the journey, I think probably I was a bit clouded, and so when because the school had already this setup in which they had the therapists, so they recommended, and so these were ones that had been vetted by them. So that one I did not do my own due diligence around it because the school had done their own vetting. For parents who are out there, the therapists are regulated as well. They have certifying boards, and so if possible, particularly for the OTs, they give you their what is it called? The registration number, something like that. That you're able to verify, that they are actually registered to practice. So because nowadays anyone and everyone claims they are, especially nowadays, there's a lot of ABA, and we know very well the path that goes around being certified, and we have very few practicing ABA specialists in the country, and so you're able actually to just verify this kind of information. So of course there are certifying boards. Secondly, there's also referrals, particularly like I said, for me, the school had done their vetting and checked their registration, checked their practice, checked their history. So you're also able to do the same thing in terms of, verifying both with caregivers. We have a number of support groups, and we always see that someone asks for someone and someone probably refers someone that is known. You can also just inquire and find out, is this person, how do they do their job? Are they registered? Blah, blah, and so on and so forth. So you're able to actually check these specialists against their governing bodies, just to see whether they are actually certified, and you're able to vet and also just do your own due diligence and, interviews where possible prior to starting. But I must admit I did that with the younger ones, but with the first one, that was done for me by the school.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Noreen, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes. It's good to also do your research as a caregiver. Just know what to expect. Have a checklist when you're doing your interviews. When you're engaging them for the first time, through experience, I'm able to tell that this person definitely know what they're doing, and this one has a few gaps in them. So it's not only about knowing a good OT and a fake one, but rather also who's the best fit for your child. Because at times, even with the referrals, you find that this one worked with this parent or with this child, but they did not blend in well with this other parent, with this other child. So there's a lot to look out for. It's an intense journey, especially for new parents. So it's good just to take your time and be open. Let them know your expectations, because at times with the OTs, I know some of them are here. At times when when you know what to expect from an OT, a fake one would not take you for a ride, because at times there's somebody who I engaged with, and she checked my channel and saw my story, and she started asking me how to get an OT. Of course, I gave referrals. I also told them that you can inquire from KMTC, people who went to KMTC, from other occupational therapists in government institutions, because also those ones are very reliable, and from KISE. And when she told me that there's somebody who told them that they will come to the house and do an assessment, I was quick to tell them, can you stop? You need to go to a certified government institution to get your assessment. Don't pay anyone any money, including, she even told me about the figure that was put for her, like, nitakuja kwa nyumba yako, we hata usiende kwanza KISE, wacha nikuje nikufanyie na utalipa hivi. I told her, can you cancel immediately? Because people have been taken advantage of, and I get very protective of new parents who come and share their journey about their first steps. So it's just good to be well informed and know what to expect and have your checkbox. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Noreen. Mercy, what would you say about this?
Yes, I have two areas I want to put my insights. One of them, let's assume, Carol, that you've done your due diligence and actually you have truly a professional therapist. So for me, over the years, I have seen that it's not just enough to have a professional therapist. But one of the things that parents, that I advise my close friends now from my journey, and this is what I do, I don't just take my children to a therapist. I go to a therapist having, if it's an OT, why am I taking Lenny to an OT? Why am I taking Eric to an OT? Because they are all different. So I go with the write-up. These are the gaps with Lenny. These are the gaps with Ricky. These are the gaps with Eric. This is what OT, this is what I want you to address. And for instance, Carol, like when we went to Neurogen for 1.5 years, even before I went there, I already had my list. These are the gaps in my sons. In the next 1.5 years, I must come back when we have achieved this. Now, many parents just take their children to a therapist. They don't have a goal. They don't have a goal. And and this therapist doesn't know your child. So it's gonna take a bit of time to understand what gaps to address with, or they will just start therapies that are just general. But for me, I am very specific. This is what I want you to address. Secondly, for me, all therapists to work with my sons, I must get a video. I must get a video to see what is happening in the therapy. And Carol, if I get a video from whoever therapist, I am able to tell this is a good therapist. I can tell. I have equipped myself with so much knowledge that I'm a pseudotherapist. Many a special ed, I'm an OT, because I've invested so much of my time. Even some areas I have actually taken classes and paid money, and I have certificates. So parents out there, take the stock of what if it's a speech therapist, what are you working on? What do you want a speech therapist to work on? You have to know the language pyramid. You have to know a neurotypical child speech therapy. How is it? And mirror yours to that. You must guide the therapist because they do not know. That way you are able to get the best out of the therapist. Secondly, the other thing I want to say is that I know parents, we like a lot of therapists coming to the house to do therapies. But did you know that all therapists do need an assortment of resources? Not one, not 10. How can they carry this to your house to do therapies in the house? You lose. You lose a lot in terms of the equipments they need, even the diversity. It could be the same concept, but you need different resources to bring in the scale. Otherwise, your child will get bored, will start behavior issues because he's not engaged enough. So parents, please take your children to the therapy centers where your therapists are so that you benefit from the resources and from the equipment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now we want to come to this point of schooling, which is a question that many caregivers ask. Do I take my child to a normal school? Do I take my child to a special school? What are your thoughts on this, having walked this journey, starting with you, Sheila?
I'll start, but I see George has sent a message. Sent a
Oh,
message saying unmute me from your end. I don't know.
okay.
You could
Okay.
still continue or we listen to George first.
All right. I think continue, then I bring in
All
George
right.
now that we are
Okay.
already
Okay.
rolling. Mm.
All right. So I guess when it comes to school and whether mainstream or special needs, it's I'd say it's not a one size fits all. And so I'll speak for my personal experience because for my older child, I remember when I was looking for a school, because remember after the diagnosis, the note was being recommended, rather before the diagnosis, uh, I was told to put him in a school. Yeah, put him in a school for socialization. That was about 8 years ago. And so when I went around looking, of course, proximity was an issue for me. So I went around looking across all schools. Yeah. However, I think once when I went around looking, and because I had already known where my son was deficient in, and I knew his gaps and what I was looking. So as I was speaking to these heads of schools and teachers in both mainstream and actually, come to think of it, I never went to any special school. So it was both mainstream and Montessori, mainstream and Montessori. So, but those that actually were also had special needs kids. But for me, eventually, what I found worked. What now we settled in terms of who I found understood my child best was now, of course, the Montessori setup. And for many reasons, of course, because Montessori is structured in a way that, they go with the pace of the child. They let the child be who they are and they structure their work. So after they explained to me the setup in Montessori, and I felt, okay, this would be the path, because where my son was, for him, he was diagnosed, right now we call it at level 1. Yeah. So at level 1, the level of support is not as high as probably, let's say, level 2 or level 3. So this is for the older one. For him, he was at level 1. And so the kind of intervention he needed is what I found in this Montessori school in terms of what had been recommended. And so that's how we ended up in the Montessori setup. Yeah. And that worked very well for him, in the sense that by the time, in very few days, because they let him be who he was, I must say that by the time we were joining school, he didn't have speech, but the boy could read, you see. And so they let him at his pace. He would get bored with the letters and small short words they were doing in their early years. So they'd let him go into the next class and, get to read other more challenging things. So they would go with his pace, challenge him further, but still address the very basic issues. Because he would read like probably someone in what we call now maybe PP2 or something, or grade 1, but he could not speak. He could not chew. He could not do the basic thing that someone else in baby class was doing. So they knew, fine, he can read, but he cannot do chewing. He can read, but his speech is delayed. So they were having very tailored interventions. And because it's not like we are all learning the same thing today, it's every child with a project, every child tailored. And so they tailored his plan for him, tailored his work for him. And that is how we stuck to the Montessori system. Yeah. And so, that has worked for us, because now they advanced and put in, of course, a special ed unit for the school. And so when it came to the little ones, I didn't struggle too much in terms of going out there looking. I just put them back as well in the same Montessori setup, and it's really been good for them, because they're on different levels, like I mentioned. One is on 2, and so this is a different kind of level 2. This is a different kind of support needs, and they've tailored her program to her. Yeah. She has this number of sessions of OT, this number of sessions of speech, this kind of interventions. We are working on this. We are working on PINSA on this day. This is the kind of plan that she has for her specific needs. And so they do that, they integrate with the school, and that has worked for us very well. So I feel for this, I think based on your assessment, based on your gaps, then you're able to know which kind of setup, and also other issues. Of course, there are financial issues as well for many parents. And in the country that we are in, the choice between what is ideal for your child and what you actually are able to now work with are two very different things. Yeah, ideal might be that special school. but are you able to pay for this special school? Are you able to pay for this autism school? Are you able to pay for this Montessori school? Or you are able to get into the mainstream government special needs school? Yeah. So some argue that, of course, if sometimes it causes delays for some, further issues for some kids in terms of being in a special space, and especially for a government setup, it's usually a mix for many of them. Yeah, all forms of disabilities in one space, apart from very few that are actually very specific. And therefore, sometimes it brings undesired outcomes for some children. And so many recommend an integrated setup where there's both, special needs and neurotypical kids. And so this brings some form of learning and exchange that is actually beneficial to these children. As well as also, of course, again, as I said, it's really based on what your gaps are, what you need for your child, and what is the best fit for your child. And so at some point also as well, special, because like I think Noreen explained this, after assessing what the child needed, the best place for the child was a special school. And so that is what you go for, because it addresses what works for your children. And so again, I just advise parents what works best. But I think as I stand and as I sit right now, of course, both special school and integrated would be best. Mainstream, for us, we are now in mainstream for the older one, and it's only because of the early intervention, because by the time he was graduating, he was at a space where he's actually able to be in a space with his neurotypical peers without too much support, and he's still competing at the same level with them right now, because of course then all is working well for him. But thanks for the very intense and early intervention that we did very early on, that has now enabled him right now at grade 4 to be in mainstream without issues. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Noreen, what would you say? Special school, normal school, integrated school?
I would say special school and integrated, depending on your child's needs and depending on if they are able to concentrate, because the level of concentration would also advise on where your child would fit in. For me, special school worked because of the kind of reception I got and the kind of interventions that they were putting in, and which was quite impressive. And I knew all those interventions could not be applied on a normal school. So I felt like he would benefit more in his early years when put in that system. And just to introduce another aspect, some of you may know through my YouTube channel that I have moved. I have moved from Nairobi, from that good school that he was thriving in, now into a space where there are no schools, absolutely no schools that are similar to that. But thanks to that school, that I was able to, I was equipped to know what I should expect when I bring in a special needs teacher. So there's that aspect of homeschooling that probably you might want to put into your list of options that we are doing right now. So I simply duplicated with the few resources that I had. Of course, it had some financial. I had to chip in a big way financially, so that I have enough tools to be able to do homeschooling. That is, have all the necessary, not necessarily all, but most of the materials that were used in his special school, I was able to duplicate in a home setup and get a good special needs teacher to enable us just continue with the individualized education plan that he had.
Okay, thank you, Noreen. Mercy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Just to add on to what the other two speakers have said, special, integrated, or normal, what guides you on the choice? So for me, I've done normal school, I've done Montessori, I've done special, I've done normal with shadow teacher, and actually I've also done homeschooling, a short period of homeschooling. So one of the things, Carol, is that I've realized, and I was in that space as well, most parents are traumatized by the word special school. And most of this trauma is because maybe as we were growing up, we saw a special needs school. Let me talk about myself. Maybe when I heard about special school, my mind went into the special schools that I saw. Of course, government kind of special schools, or let's say church special schools, things like that. So initially, I was traumatized that my sons would go to a special needs school, until I went to a special needs school that I talked about, that had was totally different from what I had imagined. So, having said that, what are the things why did my sons not fit in the normal school? Because my sons had a lot of sensory issues. They had problems sitting down. They had problems concentrating. They had a lot of steaming. So definitely all that completely removed them from the space of a normal school. Then we went to a Montessori school that was quite good in terms of the curricula, but it lacked now the adaptations that my sons required, the therapies that they required. That's how I shifted to a special school. And then, so parents need to understand that the role of a special needs school is to bridge the gaps: sitting tolerance, concentration, joint attention, joint attention, that your child can participate in a class, because these are big classes, not one-on-one. Because a lot of special needs school, the classes are small. Actually, in most cases, there is also the issue of one-on-one at some point. And those are the things that drive parents, make necessity for children to go to a special school. So in the special school, a good special school should equip your child, like Noreen said. Her son did a lot of intensive therapies early enough, and that's why now those gaps were addressed, and now he's able to sit in a class, he's able to listen and cope. But if that was not addressed in the initial years, then adapting in the school, he would not thrive. That's what has happened to my son Ricky. We've done a lot of gapping, and now he goes to he does the Waldorf curriculum, of course, still with a shadow teacher, but he still has attention deficit, still lingers. And of course, now this school doesn't have a therapy center, so sometimes you don't have the perfect mix. And then now Eric and Lenny are still in special school. The principal tells me Eric should transition end of this year, but I am in a panic mode. I am thinking, still Eric is not ready to really go into a normal class, even with a shadow teacher. Despite the fact that in terms of academic, Eric is so much ahead, he needs to be in a normal class now to do a proper curriculum, But I feel as a parent that he might regress going to a normal school because of the adaptations that he still needs. So depending on where your child is, that is what guides you on where you need to place your child. So I would just ask the parents to have an open mind, have an education assessment, and also, even whenever you take your child, you can always change your mind. If it doesn't fit there, you can always go to another setup. So it's not fixed. That's what I would like to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I believe this conversation is opening our eyes as caregivers and really helping us to know how to navigate. Thank you for the questions. I can see we are answering them as we move along, and those that we've not tackled, we will tackle them. I want to bring in George at this point.
Carol,
Yes.
excuse me, there is one thing I did not tackle, please. Just allow me a minute or so.
Okay.
I want to talk about individualized education program, something called IEP. If, my son Ricky, he is in a normal school, but he does have an IEP. So wherever your child is, please, parents, just know that even though the school may not have an IEP, you can introduce it. You can talk to the teacher because IEP is a very good tool that can move your child from point A to point B because it is very specific and it's the only thing that you can track the gains and the movement. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Um, Actually, there could be a caregiver who's asking, what is an IEP and, how does it look? Where do you recommend, for them to get the general idea of what that is?
So I think that if you Google IEP, you will get a general outline. What you need to know is that IEP is very specific. The domains could be the same. Let's say, okay, so in general, an IEP will look at the sensory domain of your child, will look at the cognitive aspect, will look at numeracy aspect, will look at reading skills, will look at social skills, ADLs, and now between all those domains, then now you take the gap, where is your child? Then you take the gap where your child is. Let's say, for example, your child cannot hold a pen. Now, in the IEP, there will be activities that are going to deal with holding that pen. Let's say it's numeracy, number values, for example, so it will be very specific. And then once you achieve, at the end of the term, you do an IEP evaluation, and then now you create another one the next term. And parents should always be involved. Both parents and all therapists should be involved when you are making the IEP for your child. But you can find this information in just Google and you'll find, or you can inbox me. I can share. Parents ask me and I normally share some of my sons so that they have an idea of, especially those who are in a school where there is no IEP, and they can adapt it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mercy. We truly appreciate it. As we give our panelists, so now our kids are growing, they have gone to school or they're still in school, and there is also the thought about the future. As a caregiver, what are you planning for? What steps are you taking to plan for the future of this child? Plans in form of maybe the life skills, plans in form of securing their future, because there's that reality that every caregiver has. What if I'm not here one day? What happens to them? What are some of the pointers that we can learn one from another? Maybe starting with you, Mercy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caro, for bringing that topic that I love a lot to talk about. Because I can tell you, one of the things that used to give me sleepless nights and put me back into depression is just the thought of, when I am not on this earth, what will happen to my sons? Who will look after them? How will they live? That question scared me so much. And I also happen to be, in so many groups, both international and local. And I happen to be in this group, Facebook group, of parents of children with autism, but much older. And Caro, I've learned, this question of what will happen when you die. It has shaped me so much because I got into this group when my sons were really young. And it pushed me to be very intentional when it comes to things like independence. So let's talk about independence. Forget academics, forget everything else. One of the priorities that parents, personally, that's what I have done, is to teach independence. Let's talk about independence. There is a personal independence. Is your child able to do toilets? Is he able to go to the toilet and do his business in privacy? Wipe his butt clean? Is he able to bath himself? Because, Carol, if you think about sexual molestation, if your child cannot bath themselves, cannot toilet themselves, then you are giving a molester an opportunity. Your child cannot talk, cannot give, cannot say what's happening. God forbid. But these are some of the opportunities that molesters come and find themselves in. They are taking your child to the toilet, they are bathing them, and they are doing their silly things. So from age 2, Carol, until age 10, that's when all my sons achieved toilet training, meaning they can go to the toilet, close the door, wipe their butts clean, and come out. It wasn't, it's three of them. That is, in fact, if it were not for the scare of sexual molestation, I would have given up. My sons would be in diapers today because it was horrors training them. We had professionals, we tried everything, but thankfully we have been able to achieve. And parents, let's do this. It's doable. It's just that once you start it, you cannot stop if you want to achieve it. It's not easy. It is very hard. And also you need to have, the other thing that helped us on toileting is because the school was doing it. So there are some things the school do, and we have to extend it so that now it's like a normal thing. It's not like a training or a therapy. You want to go to the toilet, you go to the toilet. That's a normal thing. And so that is one thing I would like to tell parents. Then bathing themselves, dressing themselves, these are eating, feeding themselves. And for years, if you came to our home, it was messy because my sons ate with a mess, but I didn't care. It was so messy that even like when we got admitted in hospitals, I would go with a dustpan and a brush and a broom, a small broom, because you can't keep telling the workers to come and clean your house because of how messy my sons used to eat. So we've also been able to achieve that. And let your children go pick their food, whether it's in the kitchen or wherever it is, then move step by step. Don't share them the food. Let them learn patience of waiting. Let them take the plates back to the sink, then go to the next level, teach them how to wash vyombos, how to wash their underwears, how to mop the house. I'm in a space where my 13-year-old sons cannot wash vyombos clean and supervised. They can mop the floor, they can sweep, they take the things in the kitchen, and they can make their bed. But Carol, this has not been a walk in the park. But I was very intentional. Now, once you do that personal space, now the next one is independence with the world. First, start with your environment. Now, like Ricky, now I can send him to the supermarket with a list, and he can go alone. It's about maybe 700 meters, and he can come back. Eric, now I'm trying to teach him go to the kiosk, which is just outside with a list. He doesn't know how to count money. He'll just go give with the list. And of course, I've talked to the kiosk people. So these are the small steps you want to do. Take your children, let them know kujua their environment, so that, and talk to the people around, because one of my son used to elope. I had to talk to and one of the places they used to like is to the shops because they want to go eat, grab sweets. So I talked to them and told them, don't worry, this is my number. If they break sodas, if my Eric used to break eggs, he had this sensory thing of breaking eggs. I tell you, Carol, the number of crates I have paid for, So I talked to them, if something happens, just call me, let him sit down, give him what he wants, and I will come and pay. So let the children go for a walk, let them know their environment, let them learn how to walk alongside you, then let them walk ahead of you a little, all those small things are very, very critical. And that is one of the things that you want to free them, so that when you are not there to keep being in bumper to bumper, that's one of the things you want to do. Then, Carol, the other thing that I learned from this group is most of the children, when they grow up after school activities, then they are at home. They are not doing much. They're just being fed. They are being taken care of. And I imagine that my sons, despite having autism, I'm sure they would like to have a sense of accomplishment. They would like to do something that they would feel fulfilling. And so from an early age, Carol, I started looking at the talent discovery, which I already did over the years. I know what my sons are talented in, and that is in sports. Academics is their weakness, all three of them. They are very weak in academics, but sports. Put Lenny on the bike, Carol. It is in his element. Put Eric in the swimming pool, is in his element. Put Ricky in taekwondo and so many other places, and piano is in his element. So now, after discovering their talent, now I am doing what is called professionalizing their talents. Now I have taken professionals, like a piano music teacher for Ricky. I've taken, my sons are doing 27 hours of sports per week, and they are under a sports company. And very soon, Carol, you will all be seeing my sons participating in Special Olympics. I am encouraging parents. I have a WhatsApp group where I share in so many parents groups that I am. Please, if you are interested, get me. We have looped in all the professionals who are in Special Olympics space in the country, and they are helping us walk this journey. Because, Carol, why should my sons be the last in everything? I am thinking that instead of doing weakness-based intervention, for my sons it's the school because it's their weakness, why should I not do strength-based intervention? Why should I not nurture where they thrive, where they are happy? Look at Beckham. Why does Beckham thrive? He said he thrives because he made his passion his profession. That's what I am doing with my sons, and I am encouraging so many parents. Let our children shine where they can shine, because God has put a talent. I kid you not. You just need to discover it. And how do you discover it, Carol? Expose your child to many things. Then you will discover where he thrives, where you are not pushing him, you are not forcing him. Lenny, write 1, 2, 3. No, put him in the bike. My sons compete 60 kilometers in the loop, and they competed in neurotypicals because there is not space for special needs in some of these things, especially autism. So, parents, I think I will just tell you, let's look for talents, let's push our children, and I am in the space now. Even if I die tomorrow, I don't care. I'm no longer, I will die in peace. It's very important to chart out the best place for your child and make it a career path. A career path. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, that is deep. That is deep. Thank you for that. Noreen, what are you doing, planning for the future?
Thanks, Carol. I must admit that the future is always scary for most parents with children on the autism, me included. And what I think most about is actually financial planning for him. And I feel like when you have finances in place, we have a group that we just hang out with as parents, autism parents, and at times we share our problems, the way we are having challenges with this and that. And on one light moment, we mentioned, like, why are we complaining so much? Is it because of the money aspect? Because would say money is not the answer to every problem we have, but it gives most solutions to most of the challenges that we have. So that that is when you're able to even implement a lot of interventions because you have the finances. So why don't we set a way that we can acquire finances? So empower ourselves financially to be able to cater for our children's future. So involving ourselves in businesses and investing in many forms of even insurance policies, having a business set up in place that could run, something that you could also train, or even starting a business that in case all things don't work, you can employ your child in that business. For instance, you could be running a hotel, and you train your child towards that direction so that they can be in one area, and also have a succession plan. Have guardians set in place to take over when you're not around. Have wills put in place so that you know that once you're gone, somebody you've appointed, they might not be the best, but you have that reassurance that somebody will step in. Expose your child to your relatives and your people and to a community so that they are able to understand your child, they're able to accommodate him, they're able to get used to him so that they know that they know that autism is a challenge, but when they're hanging out with your child, they know that your child can be manageable. Yeah, and I can also resonate with Caro. For me, I call them activities of daily living. Yeah, most parents have realized, even they slide into my inbox and they tell me that, oh, my child cannot hold a pen. What do I need to do? My child cannot read. And I feel like asking them, is it all that it is to life to read and to write and to do mathematics? Why don't we focus on other things? Why don't you lower your expectations and let your child surprise you? As long as you're exposing them to these various things, to sports, to swimming, to all this, and then now pick his strength and let him thrive on it. I tend to resonate with Mercy and say that my child, I'm yet to find out if he will be fully interested, but currently he does not like classwork. You put even a crayon on his hand and tears start dropping. And you see, I don't let that stress me for now. I will keep introducing and reintroducing and exposing him. But now I start focusing, like he loves music. When there's music, you can see him light up and he's dancing, he's banging on the piano. And I feel like probably that is where his strength is. During sports and physical exercises, he can kick the ball straight. I can barely kick the ball straight. So I'm feeling like, why don't even we explore on football and things like that? There's a lot of things that these kids are so talented in that would make them a living in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Noreen. Sheila, please weigh in on this also. What are your thoughts planning for the future?
Well, I must say that even pre-diagnosis, as a parent, you just think about your child's future, yeah, special needs or not, yeah. And in all aspects, you think about career, milestones, safety, belonging, support, and whatnot. Yeah, but now as a special needs parent, these issues, of course, take an additional angle in the sense that you're asking yourself, will they be understood and accepted for who they are when I'm not there? Will they have the right care? Will their needs be met the way I'm meeting them right now? And so for me, planning has not only been about controlling, or rather being in control of their future, but also more of trying to make sure that no matter what happens, my children are protected, they're empowered, and also surrounded by people who truly, truly understand them, like I think both Noreen and Mercy spoke about. And so I won't probably repeat what they've spoken about, particularly around equipping them with the areas around activities of daily living. And I think I also share similar sentiments because I can recall very well the first time after exposure that I sent my now 9-year-old to the shop by himself. We wrote a list together because he had learned how to write and was writing very well. Wrote a list and sent him to the shop and called the shopkeeper and didn't give him too much details, but just said anakuja, you see? And so he left and he went and he came back and he was also equally happy himself. And now he's able to actually go to the shop and bring things that are needed, able to write down what is required and go to the shop. As well, of course, in terms of when it comes to the future, is just what Mercy spoke about. I'm also I didn't expect, because he was so much leaning towards academics and seeing science side, and he could speak about football theoretically, so you'd think that something he reads and watches, only for him to insist on it to join football. And I got really surprised the way he's actually a very, very good footballer, and I've shared some of his videos actually on some of my channels, the way he's actually able to thrive in that space. sometimes we assume our kids are uncoordinated, they're not able to do sports, but, expose them. Try and see, because I was equally surprised. Yesterday, I went to pick him from practice, and I was so shocked at how many goals he scored, how many assists he did. It's one of those things that you're not even believing yourself, because at some point, they're not holding a pen properly. Yeah. At some point, they were walking and banging into almost everything in front of them. Yeah. But right now, thanks to early intervention, they're able to do quite a number of things. And it's not everything, of course. They don't necessarily have to fit in the neurotypical space, but identifying what your child is good at and setting them up for that in terms of the future, it really helps, because right now Matters is young, and I think Noreen spoke about businesses as well, and especially with the ongoing situation with our law and everything. If you're able to get their disability card, set them something if you're able to, and that is the line that you see that I'm going, because now for mine is actually very clear. He'd tell you that he wants to be a footballer, but he will help you run the business because you'll be old. You see, so he has some clarity around the fact that, and the world is very unforgiving for divergent people still, yeah, unfortunately, as it is right now. So be it the workplace, be it the what, so early enough, if you're able to actually get to see, yeah, what would work best for your child. Is it apprenticeship in a space that you're already in and supporting them to be able to run something? Are they good? Are they going to be okay in the workspace thanks to therapy and everything? It is fine. But early enough, if you're able to set up things for them, do so if possible. And so, of course, for our children, even when you speak about guardianship, it's good to set that up for sure. And I think as it is right now, we do not necessarily have spaces where you can think about their future in terms of you can leave them in a home. We're not there yet as a country. And also we have a lot of policies and legal issues that are going around that discussion. And so that is not necessarily available for us in country right now. But so having again, because we know very well, even for ourselves, it's a bit challenging to raise our own children. So imagine not being here today, something we not necessarily speak about, and expecting someone else to actually do it. Not so many are going to take it up, but for many of us, of course, we also have loving and supporting family. But we always say, if something happens to you and your children have to be left with someone else, you also make it easier for them. How do you do that? By having some cushion financially for them as well. Yeah. And so this would mean that you, of course, investing for them, setting up quite a number of things. I personally am probably not a very huge fan of the education policy, but I took one for the kids because then there's an element of life insurance for the one that we have. And so that simply means that if something were to happen to me, then there's also at least something that starts them off in terms of that, saving for them, having a life insurance for yourself as a parent as well, separately in the event that something happens. I think there are very many forms of things that can actually cushion whoever it is that picks up as a caregiver, because then it makes their life, it makes it a bit easier for them, if at all they actually also have something to work around it. But I'd also encourage all of us, if you're in a position to, and you've been assessed, to get a disability card, because one of the things, that's also some ongoing discussions are around how we set up something close to a special needs fund, or something like that for our kids in the future that they're able to tap into based on contributions from us as caregivers. So also to just take advantage of other existing opportunities that are out there in terms of securing them financially for the future. There are also things like special need trusts that people put up individually. And so this is just basically a legal tool that allows you to set aside money or assets for someone with a disability without necessarily affecting their eligibility for other government benefits. So personally, I've not worked around it very well, but it's something that has been spoken about in other spaces that probably I'd want to explore further as a safety net for my children that I've done myself without necessarily compromising their access to other benefits, particularly from the government, if at all one day then their disability card is able to support them. And so, of course, beyond that, of course, just being able to support them to be able to not necessarily, unfortunately, right now, it's sort of for them to fit in society, because as I said, it's very unforgiving for neurodivergent individuals, but then supporting them to be able to take care of themselves is very important. The activities of daily living are very important. Right now we are 9, so I'll speak about the older one. So we are able to do a lot of things that Mercy has spoken about, but also we are now at a space where we are learning how to do our own laundry. and we are picking it up. He's learning how to do a bit of cooking and baking here and there so that he's able to actually do some of these things for himself despite his condition. So just equipping them early enough so that even if at all even you're not there, they're able to do these things, one, for themselves, they're able to cope with society. And in the unfortunate space where probably someone is not able to cater for them the same way you are able to cater for them, then they know this is how we used to do things and we are able to do it ourselves. So it's broad, it goes beyond finances, it also goes just beyond equipping them with skills and also ensuring that you have a community that's able to take up from you in the event that you're not there.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that, Sheila. It is how do you take care of yourself, mental health? Starting with Mercy. Mercy?
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm a victim of mental health. And in as much as we are talking about, yeah, I've been asked, Mercy, how you're always talking about autism. How do you take care of yourself? And I have to say that the biggest thing for me that has moved me from that delicate space of, because I'm very prone to depression, but I think what is giving the therapy is how my sons are thriving. You know, as mothers, if your sons heal, your soul is healed, your brain is healed. I think for me, it is the journey. I can talk of a 10-year journey that has been very successful for my sons and that has actually healed me. Okay, that notwithstanding, I talk a lot. You know, Carol, I talk so much. Maybe in a day I get about 10 parents talking to me. And for me, I think that is my first page or phase of therapy because the more you share, you know, like now, this is therapy, by the way, this is therapy for me. This is space we are talking, it heals me. Then the other thing I do is that I'm a heavy sleeper. As long as I get my 8 hours, I'm good to go. My mental health is good. So I try so much to avoid things that will interfere with my sleep. Of course, that's better said than done. Then I also am passionate about the farm. Actually, as we are talking now, I have been in the farm for the last 2 weeks. I'm still there. I'm coming back to Nairobi tomorrow. And the farm for me is my respite space and my therapy center. I just love waking up. My farm is in the wild. I mean, it's in a remote place. You wake up with birds chirping. I wake up and look at my crops. I look at my sheep. I mean, I wake up to look to see the sunrise and the sunset, and I think that's it. That's it for me. And of course, I talk a lot. I have many friends. And Carol, I forgot to say that I do have a WhatsApp support group for my very close friends and family. And Carol, this is where, you know, they pray for me. They support me financially. They encourage me. Sometimes I'm down and they really encourage. And more importantly, they also help me think outside the box. You know, they have given me perspectives that I was not even aware of. So that's how I deal with my mental health. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's so much to learn. Noreen, how do you take care of you?
Thanks, Carol. I can relate to what Mercy is saying about the farm. The farm has been a good form of self-care. Like I just mentioned that I moved, and moving was a form of healing because from the hustle and bustle of the city to a quiet environment, that is indeed self-care for me and therapy for me and my child. And then I also do the content creation. Content creation has also been a form of therapy because sharing is caring and it also gives a sense of fulfillment. And also sharing, a problem shared is a problem half solved. So for me, posting out my story, sharing my experiences, my hits and misses have been healing and a form of therapy for me. And also getting I'm still not perfect at that, but getting finances in order are a form of self-care, because at times we are facing financial challenges with our situations, and it is one of the reasons why most parents also are prone to depression and other related issues. So planning finances also is a form of self-care. And also hanging out with friends of like in support groups, number one, and also physically meeting other autism parents, getting involved in very, even like in this forum, you see, like if you're either joining as a participant or as a facilitator or as a contributor, it is a form of therapy, because you're able to not walk this journey alone, but know that there are people also who are sharing same experiences, and you get to learn a lot and you get answers to your problems. I love dancing, I love singing, and also prayer has been a good form of therapy for me in terms of when I am seemingly lacking answers. Uh, when I pray, I get a sense of healing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Noreen. Sheila, how do you take care of you?
Well, if it's specifically mentally, then a lot of quiet time does it for me. Alone time and just being in my own space really does it for me. I'm not necessarily a talker, although I'm a very good listener. So it so happens that I support many parents in this space. We talk about everything and anything, but how I'm supported by them is then different, in the sense that when I'm in a space that they are sharing their issues and everything, then it also kind of works for me in terms of just getting to listen to other people and their journeys. And also just being around people who get it. I think it really helps me around working around my mental health. And so, of course, like I said, I really read a lot, and it might be, I mean, I really take time for myself a lot, in terms of just locking myself up and just taking some time, because sometimes even a meltdown can also trigger you as a caregiver. And so just taking time to breathe and being in your space. And this simply means, of course, then you have someone to support you, and also just watch your child for a minute or two for you to also just breathe. Something else I do a lot, and many people assume it is for my physical well-being, is being in nature. And so like the previous speakers spoke about, they love nature. For me, it's not necessarily that I'd go and sit there, but I walk a lot, between 5 to 7, 5 to 10 kilometers. So long as I'm in nature, I will walk for all those kilometers and get back. By the time I'm getting back to the house, my mind is free, my head space is in a different space. And once I'm out there also and just communing with nature, I'm also in a different place, but not necessarily stationary, but moving around while in nature. That really has worked for me very, very well. And so that's it for me, just taking time to walk, which works both for my physical, but I do it specifically for my mental health. And also, of course, the quiet time, like I spoke about. Sometimes I just check into these spaces just for a good laugh, to be very honest. Sometimes just a good laugh and you're okay. Yeah, that's how probably I got myself into some of the social media platforms, because one thing just makes you laugh your head off and you're okay. Yeah, it's almost like you reset. A good laugh and you reset. In a WhatsApp space, someone says something very funny, you laugh. And so, of course, surrounding yourself with community and interesting stuff also just makes it lighter for yourself. So that's how I take care of my mental health, and also emotionally, by being in a space of parents who get it as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We are coming to the end of this webinar, and we want to thank you, our panelists, our participants. Thank you so much for being here, and our panelists for sharing your stories. And I want to give you an opportunity for a parting shot, and then I bring in any burning question to any of the panelists. So what's your parting shot, Mercy?
Okay, my parting shot is this to the parents. Remember that science is evolving. Science is not static. Diagnostics tools like PET scan have come up that has enabled the scientific community to study autism pathology in details. Treatments like stem cell treatment for supporting brain healing, nutritional supplements to deal with mitochondria, methylation, and so many other metabolic pathways. Empower yourself with knowledge. Do not be stuck. Remember, autism is a medical condition with a medical solution. Don't be stuck in yesteryears of poor prognosis. So much can be done, and I am a witness because of where my sons are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Noreen, your parting shot?
Yeah, I would still keep encouraging parents, breathe, research, and be involved in your child's development, be involved in your child's assessment. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noreen. Sheila?
My parting shot, I'd like to tell parents and also just remind them. I'll just like to remind you that you are enough. Yeah, you are enough. You're doing your best. Yeah, just know that you are learning. Your child is learning too. So you do not have to have it all figured out to be exactly what they need or the kind of support that they do. Just simply showing up. There's always something you can do, regardless of finances. There is always something you can do for your child. So just show up and be there. Some days will be okay. Some will stretch you to your limits, but there's always something you can do. So show up and just take it a day at a time. And always remember you are enough. You're doing your best, much as sometimes it does not seem like it's happening that way. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. We want to open up a few minutes. All right. So once again, thank you everybody for creating the time. Thank you so much, Mercy. Thank you, Noreen. Thank you, Sheila. We do not take it for granted. George, thank you. You were willing to also contribute. I think we will pause that for another day. And thank you so much even to everybody who is here. Thank you for the good comments. We received them with humility and appreciation. And we hope that this forum has enlightened us and equipped us. Next month, we're going to go now to transitioning to teenage. And as a form, this is a 3-part series. We'll have caregivers of children who have transitioned to teenage or are transitioning, and they'll just equip us with skills on how to prepare for that, what to do, and an engaging session just like this. We'll be sending out the invites as we move along. So we want to come to an end, and I want to request my colleague Lillian to close for us with a word of prayer. From us, we are very grateful. Good night and God bless you. Lillian, please pray.
Okay, let us pray. Thank you, Caroline. We pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you for this vision. We thank you for being with us throughout this session, Father. We thank you for the speakers, Lorraine, Mercy, and Sheila. We thank you for all the caregivers who plugged in to get this information. Father, may this information help them, and even those who did not manage to plug in, Father, may you be with them, and may this information reach them, Father, so that they can have skills and help their children back at home. Father, as we finalize this moment, Father, may you be with us, be with those, all of us who are here, and even those who are struggling out there to have skills on how to help their children. We thank you, we adore you, we bless you, for we pray in the name of Jesus Christ, we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Lillian. Good night, everybody, and have a blessed weekend.